Remember, please hit like and subscribe for me. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go. Hi, everyone. Today's Tuesday, February 10. My name is Anne-Marie Band, and this is the Moneyball Morning Report. We have got a look at TrendSpider as our platform and MentorQ giving us those gamma flow levels that we get to see in large part. So where is the call wall for the Mini S&P? It's still at 7,000. Where is the put wall? Still at 6,600. Listen, all that is a hedge. They're just hedging against potential downward flow. Statistically speaking, seasonality speaking, we should move sideways to up, at which point, other things might happen as we stare down our price action event. It's pretty volatile. The dips, any significant dips that we see are still going to be buy zones in my mind. So what do we have? Sideways to upside pressure. Doesn't mean the dips won't be buy zones, but we've been sitting here since 11 a.m. Eastern time yesterday, holding this sideways pocket in the ES. What's likely to happen? Well, we're breaking the trend by time and not price. That implies that we're likely to move in the direction of trend, which is up. So how might we do that? Well, a couple of different ways. If you've watched me on group coaching at Top Step TV, you'll notice I talked about a poor high. John Hoagland and I were talking about it, and then I referred to it again yesterday. It's a high that is just one or two ticks higher than the prior high that pulls back into the frame. And when that occurs, what we have a tendency to see is a pullback that gives us a new leg to the north. We haven't quite done that yet, but the VWAP sits below us as support. Trend is mixed. My rapid triple stochastic shows downward trend with upward lift, and my momentum oscillator is showing divergent momentum and a sideways pressure event. That says to me, this is likely sideways. So the pullback action into 6,972, wait for it to lose the area and then break back into the range. That will give us the move from the bottom to the top of this formation. This middle box is the 30-minute opening range. We went down by 1x, so we duplicated, and then we tried to duplicate on the top as well. So you can see price action really trying to defend these regions and now trying to break above this zone. Do I think they're going to do it? The possibility looks pretty likely. Pretty likely. If you say, hey, I want to take this trade right now at 69.90, your stop would be, I'd say, right around that VWAP edge, the 30-minute low. So, you're looking at about 10 points of risk, which, that's not trivial. So important to note. Might be better just to wait for it to get out of this range or wait for the pullback closer to support so that you don't have $500 of risk per contract. All right. That being said, pullbacks look like buy zones, thin volume pocket, value area high is well below us at 69.50. This triggered yesterday. Look at how beautiful this upside pressure event was. It triggered at the 69.50. We had the downward flow breakout. What happens? We breach the level, pull back, recover the level. That gives us the long with our stop at 69.42. You might go, geez, Emery, that is a wide stop. Well, welcome to volatility in the market. There is a fair bit of volatility here. Okay? All right. So that's my guess for upward pressure today. I do think it rides now. The question is, how far will it hold? Supply zones sit above us at 7,026. We could grind to the north. We got a lot of bad news coming out, and we're still holding these higher highs. So, yeah, I'm guessing we've got ourselves a reflexive break that should push us to the upside in general. So if we wanted to see, well, what kind of upside is that? Let's clone the big box. Oh, come on. And move it out. And wouldn't you know it, right up there into the supply zone. So that's my thought for the upward target. We'll see how it goes. Where do I want to get involved? I would love to get involved right down here at supply. Anywhere around that 69.50 area. That would be fantastic. All right, let's take a look at the NQ. So let's measure trend. It's holding okay. Let's look at the near-term trend, broken out also. And then let's take a look at the formation that confirms we've been in a sideways patch in the NQ. Old resistance, new support. So that line in the sand there is 25,294. I like that as an alert event because the dip could easily give us a nice buy zone. Now, let's talk about the breakout. Same sort of thing happening. Remember, when we build inventory time and time and time again, there are people that are going to be very anxious on the trade. They're going to be very, very anxious. We have to be cautious of that to realize that that anxiety they're feeling could easily shove price to the north, because if they're short, they're going to have to buy to leave the market. This is the 30-minute opening range. This is the 4 a.m. candle. They all did the same thing. Notice how this 30-minute candlestick is just like the ES's, almost exact penetration down as up, meaning the width of this box is the same to the upside as the downside. We're just making lower highs here. So certainly not as strong as the ES, but there you have it. What could price action do? Well, if the buyers get some traction, we'll get up to 25,600 or so, right? So we'll leave that there, 25,630. The top of the range actually is here. So my apologies. It's actually down there, to be honest. I have to find where they are all connecting to each other. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to remove this and then clone this one because it's drawn with a little more precision. That area looks like 25,550. Both of these numbers should be familiar to us. They both should be familiar. Same sort of thing we're looking at. They are selling the tops, buying the bottoms until somebody pushes them out of the edge with strength and then start running because of the people who are short. If it comes back, here's a great setup for upside pressure. One, we're holding the VWAP. If it gets to the top of the range, moves 1 or 2 ticks above, and then pulls back and holds 25,340 or so, nice long. It's going to be a really nice long. Otherwise, you could take the breakout area here. Your risk is going to be a little bit larger because the VWAP will give us that edge and we could break it. And so what are we looking at in terms of risk? If you take the 400 out, 350, 345 will be your risk. So it's much better to watch the price action, stabilize here, and then consider taking a long off the VWAP if momentum holds very nicely. Still a sideways mess. Still a sideways mess. My thought would be wait for the breach to the upside that's shallow, watch the pullback, and then you'll be able to look for something around 25,000, 380 would work. 25,380 if it pulls back into that area and holds it as support and then recovers. You've got yourself a long up into the supply zones. Let's just take a quick look at the YM. 2 days, literally 2 days sitting in this sideways exposure with a top end at 50,340 or so, and the bottom range at 50,220. That's where they're fighting. VWAP essentially flat. Look what happened here. Big reflexive event. Support inventory at around 49,000. Let's see what that number actually is. 49,900. I would venture to say that's probably fair support. Could be a nice buy point right there. The breakaway formation, that's going to be the one to watch. $50,460. You know, it's kind of a big deal that Dow's over 50,000, but nobody really seems to care. But we are moving sideways, so two things could be happening. We could be in a mean reversion event that comes back to test our 49,900, or we're just moving sideways before we break out again. Either of those things are very, very possible. I'd wait for the dip to try to buy it. If the dip doesn't hold, we've got further upside. Look at the big picture upside event. Old resistance, new support. Let's clone that. 51,300. Potentially. All right. Let's go to micro Bitcoin. As I mentioned, the traders, this pocket here, I said, hey, looking at what's going on, the breakdown below 85, we're sitting in another space that we should really try to hold. The traders have been very persistent trying to hold this edge. If you're looking at this, this potentially is an ideal buy zone. Now, the last time it did it, we had a double bottom, so you might want to wait for that. But if you're buying it right off this edge at 68, old support, new resistance is the VWAP. Trend is down. That's 69,540 or so. That's the line to potentially watch. And then, of course, below this area of 68, where there seems to be a fair bit of supply, you'd want to be careful there. The big number is 67. This chart is leaking again. You know what I mean? It's really leaking. And we had a 30-minute candlestick that broke down in the overnight, and we've got downward pressure from that end. If 70,000 happens to be what we're after, 70,224 is the 30-minute opening low for the chart. I'd say a bounce here into the midline, and then we see what's going on. The large market seems to be grinding fairly well into higher highs, and this could pull it along with it. So I don't mind that long in Bitcoin, just so long as you manage your risk. Risk is fairly wide, but it should hold 68,000 if it is going to move up into the edges near 70. At which point, the call wall, which is below the put wall, you see this all the time because of the inexperience of the option traders sitting inside of Bitcoin. That will fix itself eventually, but not for now. Put wall at 72, call wall at 71. What's next? Oil. Okay. Oil also giving a little bit of a topping formation here. However, I don't know, these conversations with Iran are very bizarre. If you're not listening to them, don't even worry. I'm certain it'll make your head scratch. So, what have they been doing? Notice the entire market, all the indices that we consider, every single one of them started moving sideways at about 11 o'clock. Now, oil is one of the few ones that broke higher and then pulled back. The question is now, will they break above 64, 63 and continue to the north? Potentially. What I think I want to do is change the level just a bit and use 64, 67 as the breakaway event. If it moves to the north, there is direct supply above us. The call wall is at 65. Big supply zone until 65.50. If we actually measure this by support and resistance, this formation looks like it could easily get to that 65.30 area. Not a bad spot. Not a bad spot for the chart to move into. So we'll see what happens. Now, could you take a short right here? Absolutely could. You actually could. However, the broad price action in the near term is up. That being said, we are inside of value area high, just by a tick or two, and well inside value area low. The heavy congestion across the board has been between $62.70 and $64.60. So, very sideways. Very sideways. You could have a blow off top that moves to the south, but it feels like dips or buy zones here, most certainly. With the upper edge at 65.50. Let's take a look at gold. All right, gold broke through this area. Now, you know I always talk about how these things break. They break in the same kind of way every time. They'll break out and then pull back. If they come back to a higher low, it's a long. So you can see old resistance, new support. The long was somewhere around 12:30 Eastern time, and it bounces into a double top formation. Looks like it's only higher by about a couple of ticks. So what could we see? Well, we could see continued upside pressure, certainly. Are we trending higher? Yes. Does this look like a poor high? Essentially, it does. And so this upward pressure looks fairly important. Let's see. What we've got here. The low edge, which could give us a pretty nice buy zone, is 5,030-ish. I like that one. The breakout edge, now that it's here, is a little messier. You could simply take it on the break and then scalp in and scalp out, but you know, that's kind of tough. But above 5,111, you want to see if it pops out, pulls back in, gives you another higher low. Now, what about downside? If it loses 50.31, chances are fairly likely that it moves to 49.86 and then maybe 49.60. Call wall 5,200, put wall 4,700. So again, pretty wide. These guys are hedging. Supply, very significant down here, 4,960. Feels like a grind higher. Here's the thing. If we try to balance inventory or correct inventory, we've been long, inventory has been long in the pre-market, and so some of those traders across the board are going to try and cover their long trades and just cash in for the day. What can we stare down and say about that? Well, we could look at it and go, all right, as long as they hold above that 69.70-ish area in the ES, we're going to have upward pressure, but the pullback into that zone is also fairly likely. Watch for the dip action as inventory tries to correct. It fills in the gap, and then we move forward. For the SPY, which we are looking at right now, that line in the sand is $693. We've got the same sideways motion. All of these instruments are trading in tandem. There's no one out moving the other. Let me see what RTY looks like, just in case. Yeah, they're all the same. Everybody's sideways. Okay, so now that we have that, what are we staring down here? The sideways motion gives us the possibility of a breakout to the north. Call wall at 700. I think they're going to try and go after it. I really do. Let's see if we clone this and then move it up. Here is our measured move. 698 and then 700. What happens on the downside? Well, here's the thing. If we lose 693 and some change, we could easily come back into value area high, 690. Then I think the buyers will try to push the traders, 691, excuse me. The buyers will try to push the traders back up. If not, we go to 688. We're just going to move from one layer of congestion or inventory accumulation into the next. That's what we're going to see. All right. Okay, that's it for me, folks. Of course, for the students in Top Step, we've got some studies on the anchored VWAP today. And then I'm on the Benzinga Pro show. And, after that, I logged into a bunch of meetings. So that's it for me. Stay frosty, folks. Small size or not at all. Okay? See you soon.